Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Strength Agenda Radio. We are on episode 11, 12,
11. Yeah,
11,
11.
11, 11. I need to drink more of that. My name is Tom Soroka, the beautiful gentleman over there sporting the poor excuse for a baseball team that can't beat the Dodgers. Phillies hat over there is John Ziegler. John, good morning. How are you?
I'd be better if the Phillies hadn't blown the game against the Dodgers.
Yeah. The only I mean, I have no room to talk. I'm a White Sox fan, so the only
Right.
team that I'm actually rooting for right now is the Brewers, and it's not for the reason that everybody thinks, because they're playing the Cubs. And
Yeah.
when it's a Chicago team in the playoffs, I'm like, go Chicago. But I want the whole Bob Uecker thing. The
Um,
that's
yeah,
the only reason I'm pulling for the Brewers. I
that's
was
such a good reason.
talking to my friend about that yesterday, and we both agreed, like, just for do it for Bob Uecker. That
Yeah,
that's the only reason I want the Brewers to pull it out. But Cubs are giving them a fight, so it is what it is. Yeah, man. How are things going?
good, good, man. Like I said, other than the Phillies, we were just talking about this before we started recording. I have like a massive collection of baseball hats because I'm just a baseball fan, and every team I put a hat on for that has been in the playoffs has tanked out.
That's
My
fair.
tried and true Red Sox got bounced by the bastards from New York. Um, if you're a Yankee fan and you're listening to this, stop and never come back.
Oh,
No,
no, don't do that. Don't listen to
I'm
anybody.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kind of kidding.
I don't,
Uh,
no kidding. Exactly.
kind of kidding. But then I was wearing the Phillies hat, supporting the Phillies because Boston was gone, and now the Phillies are gone. And as I was mentioning, like I actually have, so I got a Detroit hat that I'm not wearing out of respect for Detroit, and I got a Mariners hat that actually I haven't worn since I got it. It's really cool, like retro throwback. Actually has the trident on it that they
Oh,
used to
nice.
have, right? Um, I'd be really happy to see Seattle get pretty deep because last time, so I lived in Seattle a long time ago for a brief period, and that was when like they had Alex Rodriguez, Edgar
Yeah.
Martinez, Jay Buhner, like that whole squad, and they never managed to quite get it done despite having just a killer team. So it'd be cool. But yeah, I could see like Milwaukee. That would be
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, overall, it was a rough night for Philadelphia fans. The Eagles,
Oh yeah,
I was watching Thursday Night Football. The Eagles absolutely got it handed to them
by the Giants.
by the Giants. Yeah, I'm a Cam Scatabo fan. I
I'm
love
a
he,
dude.
he's gonna end up with CTE, but like it's fun to watch in the meantime. Um,
Hold
and
on, before you continue, sorry. Have you seen the video where they're interviewing Brian Duvall, the coach for the Giants? And
yes,
in the background, you just hear, "Whoop,
yeah,
hell yeah!" And it's like Scatabo, like apparently just like having a blast in the
yeah.
background.
The other one that they've done is I guess it was during like training camp or whatever. They're all outside and it looks nice outside, but they're all like do your best Cam impression, and it's all the different players like making fun of him and doing all sorts of stuff and everything. Like it's pretty good. Yeah, he's easily he. I think I like him because he reminds me of Mike Allstott. Like that was one of my favorite players
I
growing
love Mike Alston.
up. So like I think that's why I like him a lot. But yeah, it was a rough night for Philadelphia fans as a whole. But anyways, let's get on to the stuff that people are here for. App stuff. Do we have any app updates?
No new app updates right now. Again, I want to thank everybody. Like we've been growing steady, and
Yeah,
we're
big
seeing
jump.
lots. Yeah, we're seeing lots of people logging their workouts. We're getting great feedback on the workouts. We're still like working on putting new stuff together for the app that will launch, kind of as we go. But yeah, so thanks everybody that's already signed up. So everybody knows, anybody that's interested in trying it out, you can sign up and the first 7 days are free. You're not going to get charged for the first 7 days. And if you decide you want to stick around, which we hope you do, then it's $29.99 a month, and you get access to all of the everyday programs and the other programs in there, like the basic strength program, the roll off cycle, which I'm getting ready to do again because my shoulder is all screwed up, and I'm so excited to do that to my legs one more time through.
Yeah.
Thanks, dickhole. You know, but so we've got those additional accessory programs. And the if you're an athlete, I think this is really important to point out. If you are an athlete and you tend to bonk out in training, you tend to bonk out in like your lifts when you're competing on the platform or anywhere, like strongman, anything, and you're thinking, man, I wish I could dial my nutrition in. Coach Jess and the Everyday Nutrition Program is lights out for that. Everybody that has done it has seen massive improvement and really excited. I know Chris is going through it right now with her.
Chris is going through it right now. One of my strongman guys was actually reaching out to is going to reach out to her because strongman we have like similar with masters. We got the two different organizations, and he normally competes in the 275 class, which fits him very well. But the other organization that we're considering doing their nationals next year, they have a 265 class. So
Oh,
he and like we were able to navigate, you know, the 275 class with like minimal issues and stuff like that. But just he's a bigger dude. He's about 6'2". And it's just one of those situations where like I want to make sure he's got somebody that is like, you know, tightening things down and stuff like that. A couple of my Highland Games guys were already asking me about it as well. Both options that we were talking about the other day, because you know the Highland Game season is about to come to an end here. People are going to be starting their off season. That's when they kind of start getting everything dialed in and tightened up for the next upcoming season. So yeah, I can't recommend Jess enough. She's awesome. She's going to start getting featured more on the social media because
yes,
I got a bunch of prompts that I've sent over to her because I just want to, you know, people to understand, you know, what she's about and get her put a face to the name and stuff like
yeah,
that, and then so you guys know that hey, that's my nutrition coach and all that stuff. So yeah, man.
yeah.
Um, kind of gotten some feedback on the podcast. We're kind of breaking this stuff down here into a little bit of segments and things like that. And so I don't know if you saw my social media thing that I posted on Instagram yesterday. World Championships are going on right now in weightlifting in beautiful Ford, Norway, Fjord, Norway. I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. A lot of good lifting going on. It's always an
Yep.
interesting for me. Like I'll see the clips on social media. I personally, I don't know about you, John. I don't watch World Championships. I don't want like I get asked all the time, like, oh, hey, are you watching this? Are you watching this? And when I say no, they're like, oh, you're not a fan. And it's for me personally, it's not that not a fan. It's we've got a big group. And it's a lot to keep in order. It's a lot to organize. And I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of adopted the mindset that if it's not my athletes, I don't pay any mind to it. Like, and I just because there's just so much to focus on, so much to keep in line and stuff like that. Like I'm appreciative. Like don't get me wrong,
Right.
I know Lasha's lifts. I know about Ilya and his that world championships in 2015 or 16 or whatever year that was that he set all those world records and stuff. Like I know of these things. I just don't actively watch it because it's just one of those situations like I am so focused in on my athletes and them getting better and things like that. So, but like I've been seeing some of this stuff, and one of the things that popped up was I should have looked up the country, but there was an athlete earlier in the week who had to take a world record twice. He got called for a press out. And
Bulgaria? Was it
I
the guy from
think,
Bulgaria?
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I could probably pull it up, but I'm trying not
Yeah,
to
that's
slow
okay.
it down here. But he took a world record, got called for a press out, took a world record again, made it, got the lift, and then later on, I think in a B session, I don't know if it was the same weight class or not, but it was a B session. An American lifter, Brandon, took a lift and had a similar movement in his elbow, and he was given white lights. And so essentially, it was a newer coach that I was having a conversation with, and they're like, I don't understand why one got, you know, white lights and the other got, you know, red lights and stuff. And so I
Right.
was kind of explaining to him because I just went through the whole national referee testing thing. And so, which by no means makes me an expert, but being, you know, a thrower, which was my previous life, like I started throwing when I was in middle school. You're watching, you know, one movement that happens in like split seconds, you know, and then transitioning from throwing into weightlifting. Like I just have an eye for seeing these things in real time and like these little like technical issues that occur and stuff. And the only thing I had can, you know, go back and I'll watch the post and I'll paraphrase it if you haven't, but like pretty much what I assumed was like, so in the rules of weightlifting, the press out, all right, is you have to meet the bar with your arm completely locked out. Now, when I'm talking about arm locked out, we are referring to the elbow here. Shoulders can move according to the rules. Sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. But the thing they're looking for is the elbow. And so the lifter from the US, he had an elbow flicker. Like I think his elbow kind of did one of these things, but he was stable and locked out and then he stood up. Whereas the lift that got called, he caught it with a bent arm and then continued to lock out as he was standing up. And I'm pretty sure that's why he got called. Also, keep in mind at the world championship levels, like we even saw it in Vegas, it's a different jury and a different set of judges. So you got
Yeah.
6 different people watching those lifts. So there are 12 different people watching both combined watching both of those lifts, like 12 different opinions on what is a good lift and what
Right.
is a bad lift. So just kind of wanted to take a little bit of a second to just kind of help up and coming, not only because it spurred some really good conversation in the comments. Because one of the things that was said when my buddy Jake, and he was just like, that's why they need to get rid of the press out rule. That has been since I started competing. That has always been a thing. Like, we'll get rid of the press out, get rid of the press out. I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand why it's there. It's a safety thing. Because if you got people that are sitting there catching lifts like this and then trying to press it out, like just the risk of injury
Yeah.
increases and all that. But I don't necessarily have a solution to fixing it outside of because like you could hold the referees more accountable, but like especially at the local level, like they're not getting paid. They're volunteers. You know what I'm saying? Like you can coach them up and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they're paid. They're volunteers. Even at the
Yeah.
national level for like USAW and IMWA, like yes, we got paid a little bit to do each session, but like we're not making a living off of it. So like human error is going to happen. We don't have things like instant replay. That's what juries are for. So it's just like we have a lot of like things in place. I personally am of the belief if judges keep making bad calls, they should definitely get pulled. Like I'm not saying pull them in the middle or pull them during the session as it's going on, but like at, if you can find somebody to replace them between snatch and clean and jerk, pull them because
Yeah.
like bad calls just have no place. But one of the things I think you and I have talked about in person that I think is an even better solution is coaching and just holding your athletes to a ridiculous standard.
Yes.
You and I have done it before. Like I've seen you do it, and I know you've heard me do it and stuff like that. Rachel's probably told you horror stories and stuff, but like it's one of those situations where where social media has been great for the sport, but it has also been a detriment to the sport because it has allowed a false sense of accomplishment when it comes to some of these lifts in terms of a technical aspect. One of the biggest
Yeah.
things I don't like about CrossFit is they don't really do anything with the press out rule. It's fine. But what I get annoyed with is when people from the CrossFit space come over to the weightlifting space and expect the rules to be the same or to carry the rules over. And so it's just one of those situations where it's just like, in my opinion, it's on the coaches to not only make sure that the athlete understands the rules and and understands that like weightlifting has its own set of rules that you need to follow. These are those rules. But on top of that, in training, whether it's an empty barbell or 90% of your max, enforce the rules and enforce them strictly. Too many coaches these days want to be friends. They want to be, they want to be liked. They want to, have a good time in training. And, as the kids say, the immaculate vibes. That's great and all, but like there needs to be a standard held because at the end of the day, they're not paying you to be their friend. They're not paying you to like you. They're paying you to be a mentor and to be an educator of sorts in terms of helping them. Because if I see one more time at any sort of a meet an athlete getting a no rep or whatever, and then they start talking smack to the official. I heard about this. I had a bunch of friends that were out at the Pacific Northwest Championships, their WSO championships, and the referees were strict. They had like that area has a lot of national referees, and like for those who don't know, in USAW you have the local, then you have national, then you have two categories of international, Cat 1 and Cat 2. So like national referees, like you got to sit. I just had to do it. You got to sit for 20 sessions in a weekend and you're just watching weightlifting over and over and over and you've got a jury behind you and if your results don't match the jury's, you don't pass the test. So like you've got to figure out what the rules are and you got to understand it. So, but to have a meet where you've got a primary number of national referees telling you no, that's not a good lift, and then you're gonna talk back to them. Like I will be the first to admit, I was guilty of this when I first started coaching. I used to like Corinne and I joke about it all the time. I remember I literally told her at a meet I was going to pay for her next eye doctor visit. Like it's just one of those like, and then after that, but she bless her heart, like I love her to death and appreciate her and respect the shit out of her for this. She pulled me aside. She's like, hey, pretty much told me, she's like, you're young and you're dumb. You keep doing that shit, it's gonna affect your athletes more than it's gonna affect you because people are gonna see lifters coached by you and they're gonna be like, that dude's a dickhead. We're gonna be super strict.
Yeah.
And so like that, it was like from that moment on, I realized like I got to change how I'm doing this. So now like I will ask referees like, hey, what was the call? And technically speaking, in the rules, they don't have to tell you. But
Yeah.
sometimes after the session is over, they will say, hey, I saw this because I want to know from a standpoint of like how I can help the athlete get better and what I can do next time to fix the issue that I'm potentially seeing, and whether it's in training or anything along those lines. So just kind of just curious, like your takes on like the press out rule, things that you do in the gym in terms of enforcing it and stuff along those lines. And then just what are your takes on terms of like things that we can do to like better reinforce the law of the rule in terms of the press out when it comes to competitions?
Yeah, we've had so many conversations about this that I bet you could almost like predict what I'm about to say, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, but so there's a couple things that you talked about, and one of them is like that stop trying to be your athlete's best friend,
Yes.
right? Now, granted, don't take it the opposite direction and become an asshole and
Yes.
abuse your athlete, right? There's a fine line, and I think every coach has made the mistake at some point in time of being on both extremes, right?
Yes.
Emotionally, mentally, like maybe you're exhausted, so you become too short with your athletes, or you become concerned that you're going to lose people, so you try to become their best friend, and there's a fine line, like you have to learn. And I think there's a lot of coaches, quote unquote coaches out there now, that because of social media want to portray this like, I'm happy go lucky, like look at how happy my athletes are, look at how happy I am, look at how great this is. And I'm sorry, like that shouldn't be a thing,
No.
right? Like if you're so concerned with looking like a, a happy person and your athletes are all happy, then you're focusing on the wrong thing, right?
And I think, and to add on to that point, I was thinking about that part too after I had said like coach blah blah. I think that's why I enjoy masters so much more because like, and it's definitely a generational thing. Like and this is not a like these dang kids, but like
Right. Yeah.
I find myself to like the 30 and under group having to placate to some of that a little bit more. So like the phrase like kid hands. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Mason is a great example. Like, thank God have been working with that kid since he was 11 years old. Like we've been working together almost 7 years now,
yeah.
But like in this current state, if I had him as an 11-year-old, I don't know if that relationship would have worked out
Yeah.
because like I deal so much with masters now. I'm very much like, no, that's not a lift. Like whatever. But like instead, like I would pull him aside. Like it's one of those situations where like you've got to find a way to bridge the gap
Yeah.
and not
Um,
be a jerk about it. And so like you said, like you don't have to be a dickhead, but you don't have to be their best friend, but you just got to find a way to get through to them, hey, like this is why this wasn't a lift, or either show them, explain them, whatever. But yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking about it just now, and I was like, that's probably why I do so much better with masters
uh,
because it's easier for them for me to sit there and be like, yeah, no, this wasn't a good lift because of X, Y, and Z. I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, got it.
yeah. And with that, like same kind of thought process. Like I got a couple of guys that I coach that are on the younger side. They're like 18,
Yeah.
which is still generationally far removed from my generation, and very different. And when I communicate to them, it's it's very much like a, hey, I like what you did there. However, right, this is the thing we need to tweak in the next lift.
Yeah.
Put your focus here. And I think coaches are afraid to like, I don't know, afraid to be relentless, You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And you have to, CrossFit talks about it, but you can go to certain to CrossFit gyms and you can see coaches phoning it in because they're worried about, again, being liked and being popular as opposed to being a coach. It happens in weightlifting too. It happens in every sport. So I'm just using CrossFit because I've spent a lot of time in that community. And in weightlifting, if that's kind of the focus is like, okay, we're going to rah build you up, help you feel good so that you come back tomorrow and you go in and you start coaching somebody for weightlifting and getting them ready for a meet. Holy cow, man. Like that's like, you're going to do so much harm,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, when I started focusing on like coaching people in weightlifting that wanted to actually like get on a platform, I was like, all right, well, what does that look like? What needs to happen? Because I'm very much like, this is the standard. If I'm coaching a CrossFit class and somebody's above parallel on wall balls, you're going to hear it from me. Like I'm going to walk by and I'm going to let you know, hey, you got to get lower.
Right.
You may not like hearing it, but it's the
Right.
standard,
Right.
right? And there's a reason that it's there. In weightlifting, like the standard is the standard. Whether you think it's unfair or not, it really doesn't matter.
And I think that is, you could probably like, if we could just capsulate this entire little segment here, into that. Like the standard is the standard, whether you think it's fair or not. Like, do I think it's fair, some of the drug testing policies that athletes have to deal with? Absolutely not. But like it is what it is,
Yeah,
and it's the world that we're living in. Like you gotta deal with it and go from there.
yeah. And if you're okay accepting that, and your person gets a red light for a press out, you don't argue that, right? Like
No,
you don't start pitching a fit. You don't go out and make a scene. You don't do any of those things. You just
right.
go, yep, okay, right?
The,
And
the
it is
arguing in meets is wild to me because
like,
like not only are you holding up like like not only are you holding up the competition, but like you're also making, quote unquote enemies with other coaches because they're timing out their stuff and trying to get their athletes ready to go. And here you are making a whatever on the stage, and it's just like, dude, like what are we doing here?
well, and on top of that too, right? It's just a bad look in the back too, because
Yeah.
everybody's, if you're back there freaking out and throwing your arms up and you're, I don't understand, and this, like, there have been lifts that have been, I've seen red lit on people that I had that I was like, I don't know that I saw it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if the judge says they saw it, okay, then I'm going to go in the back and I'm going to say, hey, we got to fix it on the next lift.
Yeah.
It's
I
on
mean,
us.
that's my go-to. Like anytime a judge is just like, hey man, or else coach will come like, hey, did you see that lift? I'd be like, no, I didn't. I was counting cards. Like
Yeah,
it's gonna hold up the whole operation. Like I'll tell like some of the younger coaches, I'll tell them flat out, I'm like, you can go talk to the referee. I said, but do it after the meet. Like
yes,
let's keep the show going and stuff like that. And I think that maybe is a second caveat to this whole ordeal is if you are an elder coach, like you've been doing this, 5+ years or something like that, be the mentor to these younger coaches. See them doing something,
yeah,
try to have a conversation with them. I try to stick to my state of myself with it, but it's just one of those situations where if I have to do something, I will say something, but unless they come to me, like I just kind of leave it alone unless it is causing a scene. Like I've only had one situation that I can recall coaching wise that like I had to come up and say something to another coach and be like, hey, like need you to take it down a notch or whatever because they were just
yeah,
going and it was a local event, so it was kind of a lot less, stress and a lot less commotion and stuff like that. But it was just one of those situations where it was a narrow walkway. They were upset about a thing, and I'm like, hey man, you're creating a log jam here. Like, let's go over here and talk about this sort of a deal. But I think, yeah, that's a great point. Like, just adding on to that, it's just like if you're an elder coach or a more experienced coach, mentor some of these guys, and like that's what's been awesome about my DMs when it comes to weightlifting. 90% of my weightlifting DMs these days are people just asking, hey, what are your thoughts on X? And you have a conversation, and as long as you caveat it with like, this is my experience, like it's going to be a great information sharing session.
yeah. And I think on the flip side of that, if you're a coach coming from CrossFit and you have people that want to compete in weightlifting, do
Hmm.
yourself a favor and reach out to coaches in your local area that have been coaching weightlifting at meets for an extended period of time and ask, what do I need to know? What do I need to do to help my athlete prepare? What am I going to run into? Like, pick their brain. I did that with you, right? That was one of the things like
Yeah,
that
I
kind
mean,
of,
that was the start of the relationship.
yeah, because I've been coaching for a long time. I had my own affiliate. I coached a lot of CrossFit people, a lot of CrossFit people that were doing CrossFit competitions. And when people started wanting to do weightlifting meets, it's like, okay, well, what do I need to know? Oh
Yeah.
well, hey, like this isn't gonna cut it. Like if they do this, that's not gonna cut it. And as a result, you learn, right? And then you get the opportunity to understand how to behave, how to act, what's acceptable, what's not, you know, all of that kind of falls into place. And then I think the other thing that I believe is super important, and we've talked about this before, is when you are coaching and training, the standard is also still the standard,
Yes.
right? So one of the first things I tell new people that I am coaching in weightlifting class is like, hey, just so you know, I coach to USAW standards because I want anybody that's in here to feel that they are sufficiently prepared as to what to expect when they step on the platform,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, hey, I think I just said it like the other day to somebody, like they, you know, did a behind the neck jerk and had that little like here, literally this here to here, right? Just this boop. And I was like, hey, like everything else looked great. It wouldn't have been a lift on a platform, right? Because of that arm, the little press out. But they knew it because we've
Hmm.
been working together for a couple of years. And they're like, yeah, it was my left arm. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
like do your athletes that service to
Yeah.
help them develop the expectation. Plus, here's the other thing with that. And I think this is really important. And I think it gets missed a lot. When you hold people to that standard and they start to understand like how that feels, right?
Hmm.
Between a press out and between a lockout, you're helping them to develop kinesthetic awareness within their own body that will aid them as they start to try and lift heavier to be safer and less prone to like an oops accident that leads to an injury. Because
Agreed.
you have taught them that if this is happening, fucking get rid of the barbell.
Yeah.
Don't
Right.
try and like there's no point to try and save that lift. And
Yeah.
that's where people get injured is they start doing this thing and they're like, I gotta get it. And then all of a sudden
Yeah.
they're like, oh God, my arm, what happened? And you're like,
Right. No, and I think, yeah, so I think like to kind of put this all in a neat little, wrap it up in a neat little bow. The injury thing's funny because I literally had that situation happen with an athlete, and it was like one of the like most terrifying things I've ever experienced as a coach. Like literally, like on the video, you can hear me yelling, like, put it down, drop it, drop it, drop it, and then the elbow went. I was just like,
oh,
oh.
God.
Um, but yeah, yeah, it was gross. He's fine. It was all fine. But yeah, so just going back to this, like press out rule is what it is. It's not going to change. It's not going away. They're not going to make any brand new rules to make it either more lax. The judging itself is going to still be very subjective because there are people who can't see in the blink of an eye the difference between shoulder movement and elbow movement, and it's going to get called. So I think at the end of the day, like it is on the coaches and the athletes to hold themselves accountable. The standard is what the standard is, whether you think it's fair or not, it doesn't matter. And you need to find ways to hold your athletes to that standard or hold yourself to that standard, whatever it is. And just make
Yeah.
sure that like you are better prepared or best prepared when you go to these meets. Yeah,
Yep.
that was yeah, I definitely appreciate your insight on that one. I was just curious because, like I said, I've been having that's like what 90% of my conversations are on social media involving weightlifting is stuff along those lines.
Yeah.
Speaking of conversations on social media, it's one you and I have been having. Next one I wanted to talk about is AI stuff in terms of programming. Where this is going to parlay because we got a little bit of a programming talk to wrap this up at the end here. But I just kind of wanted to get your take because A lot of coaching platforms are now switching. Even CoachRX has an AI option in terms of writing programs and stuff like that right now. And I just kind of wanted to get your take. I don't want to take too long on it, but pretty much the question I got was, why would I pay all this money for a coach when I can just pay like a fraction of the price and use an AI thing? And it was a genuine question for somebody who was just getting into weightlifting and stuff like that. And so like I had my answer, to it. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have very similar answers and stuff like that. But you being more the tech guy than I am, I kind of wanted to hear your take on that in terms of like what are some things, and I guess because I don't want to turn this into like a rant session where it's just you and me being like AI sucks, we're better, like all that nonsense. But
Right. Yeah.
it's just like what are some pros and cons in terms of like what to look for.
Yeah.
I have seen some really bad AI training apps out there, and I've seen some pretty good ones.
Yeah.
And they all have their, caveats and stuff like that. So I guess for you, like, let's create kind of like a guide, a quick guide here for folks who might be considering it so that they can determine whether or not, obviously, at the end of the day, we want you to use our app, we want you to use our programming and stuff like that. But John and my style might not be for everybody. So to kind of
Yeah.
help people navigate the sea of options that are out there. What are just some quick things people can, keep in mind and look at when they're talking about like AI programming and stuff along those lines?
Yeah, I think the first thing we got to talk about here, and I'll try and be brief on this. So I took when AI started to become a thing,
Yeah.
and so I got on really early, and I took courses in AI, and I learned that AI has all these amazing abilities, but it also has a pretty significant drawback to it. So, and I don't know, people may have already heard this, it may have been talked about, right? But here's a couple things that are important to remember is one, AI does not know everything. It only knows really kind of like almost like a surface level amount of information that's been available to it in a specific time frame and what you teach it, right? So it can go in and can pull like information. Let's say AI in the last year has a 5-year base of knowledge to draw from.
Yeah.
Well, here's what happens when it needs information that isn't available within that 5-year span. It starts to make things up. So it creates what's called an illusion, a hallucination. It's literally what the term is. So AI can have a hallucination where it believes that the information that it's creating is what you've asked for, but then if you dig down and you look, like it's not accurate. Like they're finding this with like college papers that kids are writing. There's a really interesting one that happened with the Department of like Health,
Hmm.
right? With a report that they created apparently out of AI, and it cited things that had never been written.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's happening with college students as well. Like professors are going in and they're looking at the citations because AI is like, I cited these things, and when you click on the link, there's no actual paper written. It's
Yeah.
just making things up. And then the other thing that happens is AI, oddly enough, has the same issue that human beings does, which is it is subject to biases
Hmm.
and the accumulation of false information. So there's that as well. So you got to be careful in those regards and understand that you should always kind of double check it. The other thing about AI, specifically when it comes, I think, to programming, right, is AI does not have the years of like observation that go along with watching how people move
Right.
and seeing the results from training and understanding, how this movement impacts the next movement, impacts the next movement, impacts the next movement, and why you might start with, heavier load here, lighten your load, but increase the volume here, like keep on going down the line. And even if you ask it for, so like I've tried this, I loaded a bunch of information into it. I was like, all right, let's see what happens when we write a program this way. And so I was like, hey, I want an 8-week progressive program that does this. And I dumped a whole bunch of information into it, like legitimate information, like training books, like different stuff I had available to me. And what it spat out was basically just a minor variation of something that I had fed it. And it missed the boat on what I, as a coach, was actually looking for.
Yeah.
Like, you're just giving me a different variation of this. You're limited. It's limited to like its understanding of movements and complexes and those kinds of things. So like if you're brand new, my thought is if you go to AI and you ask it to create you a weightlifting program,
Right.
right? It doesn't understand you're new. You could tell it you're new, and it's still not going to understand like how new. It's not going to understand your limitations. It's not going to understand, you know, all of these different things, and it won't be able to give you scales. Um, Now, on the plus side, right? And I do want to acknowledge like there are some plus sides to utilizing AI is, you know, you can create things like workout notes. Like
Yeah.
if you're a coach and
Yeah.
you want to give workout notes, right? You can use AI, you can feed it your programming and
Mhm.
say, hey, I want you to create some class programming notes. I would like it to have these aspects to it. And you know, that athletes or coaches or whoever is going to use those programming notes will be able to see. And
Yeah.
it will give you what you ask for. You're going to read it. You're going to realize it's not what you were looking for. And you're going to spend probably a good amount of time refining it until you get a format from it that you like. But once you get there and you have that, then you can go, okay, great. Let me just feed it right until I get it. The other thing that you have to realize with that is that at some point, AI gets like starts making changes to things.
Yes. Yes.
And you have to pay attention to that too. Like even if you've been using the same format and it's been kicking out the same kind of style of programming notes or what have you for a month, all of a sudden one day it's just going to decide, I think it would be better if I just did it this way. And it's
Mhm.
going to kick you something completely different. And then you're going to have to go back in and you're going to have to reteach it
Yeah.
how to do it the way you want it to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of those situations where, like I said, I feel like in this day and age, with like, I mean, like like we all use AI in some form or
Yeah,
fashion. Like, I mean,
sure.
for the most part, I use it for editing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have an app that I use when I'm writing programming, newsletters, all sorts of things, video review, even. It's logged into my computer, and it's just like, hey, this sentence sucks. And it's more of a spell check, but it's an advanced version of spell check. And it's funny because I was texting you yesterday and it kept trying to go into my text messages and fix my text messages, and I'm like, stop it. I said what I said. Um, but yeah, like it just AI has its advantages. Um, I personally feel like you brought up some really good points about like your ability levels, and I feel like a beginner, you need to be working with a coach, preferably in person. But like if you can get a remote coach to work, like if you understand the basics of weightlifting, but if you are like brand new to the sport of weightlifting, you need to get yourself in front of a coach and get working with somebody. AI is not going to be for you. I feel like AI, the best group, and this is kind of one of those situations where some people might agree, some people might just be like, it's bad in general. I feel like the intermediate athlete, the athlete who understands the nuances of the sport, understands the technical aspects of it, and is just looking for to turn their brain off in terms of programming, and doesn't necessarily have the time to be, going back and forth with the coach, has their own setup and stuff like that. AI would be a great option for you. Now, when it gets time to go to a meet, that's a whole other ball game. And there are some AI, components out there that do a great job of getting people ready for meets because those are weightlifting specific and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just one of those situations where just be buyer beware. Like, yes,
Yeah.
short term, it's going to be cheaper. But like you said, for things like scaling, for things like your ability levels, needing to sub out equipment, things along those lines, it only knows what it knows. So like the less weightlifting based it is, the harder it's going to be to kind of overcome those sorts of issues and things along those lines.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the other things is we're talking about like intermediate people. So I think if you're trying to compete in anything, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's strongman, whether it's CrossFit, it doesn't really matter, right? AI is not the right tool for the job. This
Right.
is just flat out. You need, if you want to be a competitive athlete in any way, shape, or form, you need a coach who can watch you move, who can make adjustments with you, who can, build out something that progressive and peaks you at the right time for the right thing, right? Um, and really, AI is not going to do that because it's not going to watch you move. It's not going to give you the immediate feedback that you need about, hey, this is what I see happening. Here's the adjustment we need to make,
Right.
right? So let's make that on the next lift, right? And let's see how that works. And then we're going to be relentless about, okay, I know we weren't perfect on that next lift, but we looked a little better. Let's keep going, right? It's not going to see, I have an athlete who has horrible knee valgus issues, like in the pull from the floor,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
one leg is longer than the other, and so we're working on fixing that. But AI is not going to help you fix that because AI is not going to be there to like watch, give you the suggestion, see if that helps. If that doesn't help, let's go through the Rolodex, find the next thing. If that doesn't help, maybe I need to ask somebody else, right? And see what another coach has in their toolbox. Like it doesn't have that
Yeah.
ability. If you're in it, I think where AI really has kind of like its greatest benefit in terms of programming
Mhm.
is, I would agree with you, is like an intermediate athlete who's not looking to compete and
Yes.
just wants something to do, like isn't really concerned about, you know, progressive and adding, making real significant strides, and just like, I just want a 4 week thing to do because
Yeah.
I'm traveling. Um,
100%.
but to that point, you still have to teach it,
Yes.
right? You still have to get it to understand what you're looking for. And like, it's not going to pull from the same knowledge bank that coaches will, which, you know, when they have a decade plus of experience, like in a live setting, watching people move and writing programming based on how people move. Like I program, right? I write affiliate programming for CrossFit gyms that we're going to get launched, right? It would be so much easier to go and like use AI for that. But I have a specific mission that I want to accomplish within each cycle. And there's a specific rotation that I want to have of movements and, you know, looking at interference from one movement to the next inside of a workout. And I'm not perfect at it, but when I'm writing metcons, I would say I'm probably in the 90% range of being accurate when I'm like, okay, well, if somebody scales this appropriately or they're, truly an RX athlete, this is what their time should be. This is how many rounds they should be able to get. So this is what I'm writing. And then I make an adjustment if I don't think that's right. And when I'm not right, because I follow like times and scores from the affiliates that are using the programming right now,
Yeah.
then I go back and I'm like, okay, so that maybe was a little over programmed. I need to make an adjustment here. And I have other people that I go to that I know can do like all of the programming RX. And I'll ask, like, hey, if you did this, what would your time be? Like, where would you fall into it? And I take that data and kind of take that in. So I think people need to understand like the amount of like the process for coaches that do programming,
Right.
and how much time and how much observation and how much like actual human interaction that we have watching people do this. I we talked about this before. Like I was the CEO at Thunderbro for a while, and I got to watch Dave Lipson go through his programming thought
Mhm.
process, right? And uh, Dave has a wealth of knowledge, and he would go through and that wealth of knowledge, like, you know, fed into what he was doing, and he made adjustments on a weekly basis to stuff, right? Your stuff, like if people go into the Everyday Strength app and you go through and you look at it, you're like, this is very well thought out. It has a purpose behind it. It's progressive. It's,
Mhm.
like the percentages change, the movements change, the accessory work changes, and all of that is done with a very like serious thought process. And it shows, not to toot your horn too much for you, but I have to because sometimes you don't. Um, it shows in the results of the people that are on the platform that are
Yeah,
competing, the strides that they make from one meet to the next, the accolades that they get when they're on the platform. All of that is evident, and that is a result of having a coach who pays attention to what you're doing, who creates programming that is specifically geared towards, you know, performance or whatever that may be,
right.
and coming back and then going back to the drawing board when that cycle is done and saying, okay, well, what do I want to do next? What do they need next? What did I see happen over and over with people? When I program weightlifting for the folks that I coach, like the next cycle is very dependent on the weaknesses that I see in the current cycle. So if I see people struggling with their jerk and their press, well, the next cycle is going to have a lot more overhead strength work, right? And
Yeah.
that's just something like AI doesn't do.
And that's kind of it kind of parlays us into our next thing real quick here. We'll wrap it up after this. I was talking to people about programming, and I got asked pretty much like how far out do you write programming? And my rule of thumb is 4 weeks. Like I will make so like when I write a program, and I don't know how your process goes, but like when I'm writing programming, I will write 4 weeks out at a time because I have an idea, I have a thought, and stuff like that. But the reason I write 4 weeks, like, and so like I have my whiteboards right here, and I have a calendar kind of set up like what I would like to emphasize at different points of the year and stuff like that because my main programming kind of follows a yearly progressional pattern. But obviously it changes and alters for those who compete more and stuff like that. For those who don't compete, it follows pretty much the same progression. But for me personally as a coach, where the feedback comes in is from the video review. So that's why I'm big on my athletes giving me videos for me to review and stuff like that. So I can go in there and I can sit there and see what I'm seeing, see if like the stimulus that I'm looking for is what I need to see, and then I will go and make adjustments. Like so, for instance, like you're talking about like overhead strength and stuff like that. If I'm seeing people are having a hell of a time locking out their snatches and their jerks and stuff like that, the next training block we're going to be addressing some overhead imbalances, whether it's more tricep upper back work or if it's just some better stability work in terms of like bottom up presses, things along those lines and things. But yeah, so like when I'm writing programming and stuff like that, it is a 4 week progression. And then I am using those 4 weeks to kind of assess and evaluate where people are, how they progress through the 3 weeks, because that fourth week is a deload week, not a
Right.
throw, chance to recover. And I'll kind of use that 3 week progression to see how athletes progressed, the different athletes and stuff like that, and then make decisions moving from there. And that's just something that you can't really get with like an AI,
Yeah.
generated thing. And so I'm glad you brought up that point here. Um, with that being said, let's go ahead and bring this one in on home. Is there anything we forgot at the beginning with like announcements or anything that we want to let folks know about?
We got some new shirts up on the site. So we've got there's two governing bodies in the sport of weightlifting. So there's two different worlds. We've got a bunch of people competing at Daytona at the Worlds there in this coming December, right?
8 weeks out.
And
I believe we're 8 weeks out from that already.
I know 8 weeks out. So there is a Daytona World themed shirt. So if you want to support your favorite lifter on the team, or you're on the team and you just want a shirt to be able to wear out there, go ahead
Yep.
and grab that and order that. And then we have a nice, really kind of just plain one that seems to be pretty popular already out of the gate, and that's the strength agenda on the front, and then on the back it's got the little guy and it says hashtag stronger together. So there's that one. The Strength and Unity t-shirt is still available, but only for a little bit longer. So we got about 3 more weeks of that being available. So
Yep.
grab that before it's gone. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, one thing I have noticed, I definitely want to, I'm so glad you said that, and then I'll stop talking because I know I ramble. If you are not getting our emails, I have noticed that in my Apple like iCloud email that it has somehow randomly started dropping it into spam. It's happening in other emails as well. That's a change that was made somewhere within, their system that's now routing stuff
Yeah,
into
I had
spam.
I had to physically go in and mark the newsletter important because same thing started happening to me right around Vegas. I
Yeah.
stopped I stopped seeing the newsletter pop in. I got a post ready to go about the newsletter and stuff like that. If you guys are not subscribing to the newsletter, highly suggest it. John is doing a phenomenal job. John is the mastermind behind that. I like it's my newsletter, quote unquote, and I'm excited to open it up every day, every week when it comes out.
Oh,
Because
thanks, buddy.
I know some of the stuff that's in there, but I don't know how it's all in there. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, really good job with that. There's a lot of helpful information and stuff like that. Make sure you check out our social media at the Strength Agenda. It's just the Strength Agenda at Facebook, at the Strength Agenda on Instagram. We don't do TikTok, we don't do Twitter. There is a Twitter, I just don't use it anymore. I'm off that platform. But like we try to keep you guys updated. We're gonna start trying to post more stuff through the social medias and stuff like that, not just our lifting highlights, but things that we got going on and stuff like that with the business in terms of the app, the newsletter, apparel, pick up some apparel. But yeah, we really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you guys very much for everything. John, anything else?
Nah, that's it.
All right, I'm Tom Soroka. That is John Ziegler. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye, guys.